Yep.
Hey, my name's Corbin Reeves. I am the founder here at Azure Ravens Entertainment, a game studio located out of Michigan. We do a lot of co-dev and contract work, but we do some of our own independent stuff as well. I'm also a professor, currently over at the University of Michigan and at Lawrence Tech, but I've bing-bonged all across the state at this point. So it's been a pleasure, you know. We started 8 years ago. We kind of looked around and we were like, there's not really anything else out here. And we were like, we'll start something small, we'll make a game, then we'll all go get jobs somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got a small group together and we started doing that. And we got a contract that came through and we're like, well, we're not making any money. We're making our own games, no cash coming in. Sure, we'll take the contract. And then from that, it generated more referral work. And we've kind of been on a referral work pipeline for the last 8 years, which always gets a few people going, oh, wow, okay. People always joke, they're like, well, you've shipped a couple of different things. We've touched pretty much every platform there is out there, from VR, AR, PC, mobile, console. We also did some stuff with film, which was crazy.
Okay, yeah.
And they were like, when are you going to start shipping some of your own stuff? I was like, well, that's the thing. Your own stuff costs money. But it's been fun. We've been working on some of our own independent stuff now for the last couple of years, in between, the paid work, which always comes first.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever we have people, like, we're 15 people now. So whenever somebody's not staffed on a project, they get put on our independent work. We're in the Roblox incubator right now.
Okay.
So we applied for that. We got into that, which is crazy. There are some absolute giants in that incubator right now that caught me off guard. I don't think all of them have announced themselves yet, so I'm not going to go too much into that yet.
Okay.
But more news for that will be coming out in September. And so that'll be really cool. We've also got our own independent stuff. Ravenwood Acres is a farming life sim we've been working on for 2 years now. Just kind of slow cooking it as we go through stuff and build that up. We've gotten some good support from Xbox, so that's been really sweet.
Cool.
The Xbox Game Camp guys were stellar. Chris Douglas, Chris Charla, Peter Zetterberg. Those dudes are phenomenal guys, and they've been really helping out the indie ecosystem lately, especially with how chaotic it's been.
Yeah, I was just going to say, they got like some things brewing right now, so that's kind of cool.
It is. I often joke that we get very lucky, but the answer is that we're just always here. We just keep moving forward no matter what happens. The kind of mantra we have in the studio is just keep moving forward. Like, we have it on a couple different flyers, because we've had some real rough days over the last 8 years. But we come into work and we go, okay, well, what's next? Well, we keep doing our jobs. We keep doing it the best we can. And we keep letting people know that we're here. And as long as people know we're here, and as long as we know that this is happening, we'll be fine. We'll make it through it. Somebody will call us. Like, we were working a contract that sent me to GDC, which was a really cool one, for a demo for a chaotic multiplayer game called Forked Up. It was really awesome. The guy behind the project is an awesome friend of mine, and he was looking at an exit from his company, and he was kind of funding the project that he wanted to kind of see happen. And then his exit got held up as they're going through the process of like IPOing now and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And he ran out of cash, and he goes, dude, I'm sorry. I'm like, it happens. It sucks, but it happens. And I was like, that was our one. We had like one contract at the time. I usually try to not ever be like all eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of those moments where it's like, good friend, good project. Everything looks good. But it's a good learning experience. Even 8 years in, you keep learning new things. Everybody's like, well, what's going to happen? I was like, we're going to keep trucking and see where it goes. And we've since landed something new, and we're always looking for new stuff. And that's my advice I've been giving a lot of small studios is like, you can always bring on some extra help, give people some opportunities, especially the way the space is now, to not bid for work or not make yourself known that like, hey, you're looking for stuff is crazy. Even if you want to build your own independent thing, ship your own independent games, there are other projects that might need your expertise and your help. And not taking on that, you can focus more on your independent thing. But what happens if the market shifts or if you're wrong? Like, we've been doing this for too many years now to not think sometimes we think our ideas are better than they are.
Yeah, no doubt.
So
what's led up to the creation of this, the inspiration, or I guess what was your path to being able to get here?
Yeah. So I've failed at a couple of career paths early on that I was interested in exploring but didn't fit for me. And I say that, but I figured out what I wanted to do by the time I was 23. It wasn't that big of a deal. But I explored a couple of avenues and they didn't really work. And then I found games, and I found a phenomenal mentor in Dr. Pamela Spielman out of Eastern Michigan, who kind of saw my weird background and how I had kind of gotten into a couple of different things. I worked in nonprofit leadership for a little while. I was a psych major at the time. She was like, oh, do you work with kids? I was like, yeah, I do. I ran an after school care program for like 300 some odd kids. And she had this cool research she wanted to test out. We partnered together. And she's like, you seem really interested in experiences and how these kids have a good time here, how it's like experience design was something I didn't know about at the time, but I was really interested in that without knowing it.
Yeah.
And so she kind of poked and pushed me towards looking at game design as an interest field for myself. And I've always been a dive headfirst kind of guy. So I dove in, fell in love with game design, went to like IndieDB, found 2 contract gigs that were looking for a designer, and they were like, we're rev share maybe someday. Threw myself into that. First one blew up catastrophically, as everybody else tends to have an experience like that. And then the second one shipped, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then the guys sold it almost immediately to another company to dump their liability and not have to pay their people, which was an insane play.
Okay.
Because the way the rev share contracts were. And I was like, man, everybody else is all upset. I was like, that's crazy. I got to work on 2 games already. This is sweet. And I'm a rather optimistic person. But from that, I was like, you know what? I'll spin a small team, like I said. We'll make a game. We'll ship it. We'll go get jobs. It'll be easier. And I had been looking at grad school, and I was like, okay, well, I'll start this company. And I kicked off the company, and we got a gig. Like I said, we ended up getting some contract work and then some referral work that kind of cascaded into us sticking around. But like I was in grad school, and throughout most of grad school, I kept telling myself, like, yeah, you know, the studio might stay a thing. And then I was like 3.5 years in, and I got an interview with the Ashes of Creation team, Intrepid Studios.
Okay.
And I got to like the last round of that interview, and it was like really cool process. And it was me and a classmate of mine from grad school. And we were both like, oh my God, this is going to be so sweet. And we're like, you know, whoever gets it, it'll be great, whatever. And I ended up going into work, and one of my guys turned around and goes, hey boss, what are we doing today? Because we had just come off a project. And I was like, ooh, I don't know. And I don't know why, but it just kind of stopped me. It kind of stun locked me for a second. And I was like, what are we doing? And I was like, you know what? Let's work on this. Let's work on this in a couple of independent concepts that we had brewing in the back of our brains. I was like, well, let's work on some mock-ups for these 3. We threw them up on the whiteboard, wrote out 3 different game concepts, and I went up and started doing some market research and thinking about, you know, if I get this job offer, if I actually get the offer to go out, then the studio's over. And I was like, but we had already grown it for a little while now. And I was like, well, that was kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there, and I was like, man. And so I pulled my my business partner, Connor Thompson, my CTO, and my now at that point wife, Amelia, who was our art director, and I pulled them aside and I said, hey, you guys want to keep doing this? Do we want to see if we can make this a thing? And they were like, yeah, I think so. And so later I did get the call. They were looking for somebody with more programming background. I was like, beautiful. This is perfect. It felt like I when they told me that, I was like, oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad to hear that. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, the person you picked is wonderful. They were a software engineer before going to grad school for design. They're a perfect pick. They're like, okay. But like to me, it was a relief. I was like, we can keep making games here. And I tried that. I did what I had to do with that. I explored that avenue, and I was like, you know what? It's not a fit at this time. Let's try some other stuff. We did our research. We found that Ravenwood Acres, our farming life sim game, tested really well with our audience research and our market research, and it was the better of the 3 options. And so then we went in and we decided we're going to start building that, and we're going to keep bidding on contract work. And every time I say bid on contract work, it implies like we were actually doing business development. It was when somebody came in and said, hey, can you do this? I was like, I don't think we've ever done it before, but we could try. Here's what it will look like. And then we just, you know, I am brutally honest with all of it. I believe transparency, hyper-transparency is the only reason we're still here as a studio. And a lot of our clients have really liked that.
I've been told how difficult it is to get a game shipped, and you kind of seen that, been a part of, you know, some of the game things that you've been a part of. So like, it's just interesting to hear like different people's paths to the industry. All of that just kind of came to mind when you kind of brought that up, because it's kind of interesting.
I love that you say that, right? Because yes, the industry, the access to knowledge about it has rapidly expanded. Like you said, so many programs are out there. So many educators are now out there talking about games, teaching games. It's becoming more and more an academic pursuit, which is incredible. As a professor, I love that. I love seeing that. As somebody who's been in the industry for as long now is like 9 years, something like that. I've been with IGDA for the whole length that I've been in the industry as well, doing stuff like I run IGDA in Arbor alongside Austin Yarger and Jerry. They're both wonderful dudes. The biggest thing that I've noticed, and I heard this from day one from my mentor, Pam, the industry's pay to play. It is pay to play. You have to be willing to go to get a degree in games. Not only do you have to do that, now you have to be able to spend the time to build independent projects, because you have to be better than the other people who are applying. This is entertainment. I try to remind people that, right?
Mhm.
Just like film, just like being an actor, just like doing anything like that, where it's entertainment driven, there is always going to be millions of people who dream of doing it. There will be a few thousands who try it, and there will not be enough jobs for everybody. And so the thing that I always try to remind my students and other people who are in the industry is this is the long game. You have to be here for the long haul of it. There will be layoffs. There will be times of contraction in the industry like what we're going through right now.
Mhm.
And there's decisions you have to make that are so hyper personal for you and your family and for what you want. Is building games professionally it for you? If that's the case, then be ready for whatever that means.
Mhm.
And that typically means that, sometimes pay might be lower. Like in our case with the studio, I haven't technically taken a real salary in the 8 years that we've been open, but that's because I get paid teaching. But when it comes down to like even the opportunity to do that and pursue that, right? Like there's some privilege that comes with that if you ignore that or you don't acknowledge that, you can look at the industry and say, well, it's easy to get into.
Yeah.
Just open your own studio, run your own studio. I have wonderful parents who are incredibly supportive. I have a huge support network of people in my life because my parents spent my childhood kind of building that up.
Mm-hmm.
They're very middle class. They're climbing, though, which is great. Dad bought the business he worked at for 28 years.
Nice.
Which was insane. If your father who's nearing retirement decides he's ever going to buy a business, that's an insane conversation to have. Especially when he's like, yeah, we can get an SBA loan. I was like, okay, well, how much cash do we have to put towards it? He goes, none of it. I was like... But it's worked out. It's worked out great. And he likes to joke that he's a second generation business owner after me because he helped me start mine before he chose to buy his own. But all of that comes from a pay to play mindset. And if you ignore that, if you step away from that without realizing that, it creates a different industry, which I think is something that a lot of people struggle with right now. They go, oh, well, making games, you've got to be good, you got to be dedicated, you got to be driven. Well, that's not it.
Yeah.
You also have to have the right situation, which isn't fair. It's never fair. Like I said, my mentor, her name was Pamela Spielman. She was an engineer and a simulation specialist back when there were no women in that field. She was one of the first in the field doing that kind of stuff. First at the university doing that kind of stuff, faced a lot of issues and situations there. And she spent a ton of time mentoring me when I first got started teaching to remind me that my path, my personality, what got me into the industry is not going to be the same for every student who walks through our doors. And then I worked in Flint, Michigan for a number of years, and that was driven home even more so. The students at Kettering are phenomenal, incredible engineers, incredibly driven individuals. But if you look at the backing and the support for a lot of the students who end up there, it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so quite a few of them would say, oh, I want to make video games, but I have to do X because we have no option.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hear you. Do that. Get the job. And lately I've been telling people, get any job, then apply towards games. Mm-hmm. Your first thing to do is to make some kind of cash.
Yeah.
I had a student ask me, they're like, well, what do you mean by any job? And I said, it's very simple. Back in April, I thought my studio was going to blow up. And again, April's not long ago. My plan was call friends, try to find work for the studio, try to find work for my people if I couldn't find work for the studio, keep doing my teaching job, but my teaching job wouldn't be enough if I didn't have this. I'd have to apply for full-time teaching positions or apply for full-time industry jobs. But I started planning through all of that, and I was like, well, over the summer, I don't make any money. If everything's gone, I should just get some work. So then I looked up what Chipotle and Panda Express pay. People go, well, you're not going to go do that. I was like, yes, I did. Yeah. I pre-filled the application. I was ready to go. You have bills. They don't go away. You can be sad about it. You can be upset about it. You can be frustrated about it, but you have to keep moving forward. And, it worked out for us. But every time somebody asks me, I was like, you always plan for it. You always plan for I'm violently optimistic. However, I'm also realistic because you still got to be here tomorrow. And so, it's just planning. But yeah, it is very hard to break into the industry right now.
Yeah.
Really challenging.
What is the industry or sort of the gaming landscape like in Michigan? I guess the overall, approach or point of view towards, games in general, because, people are still getting on board with games as a industry, a business, however you want to put that, versus just a thing you sit down and lose and waste all your time doing. So
Absolutely.
What is sort of the mindset, I guess, around gaming and stuff up there?
Yeah. So at the state level, we fall into a weird intersection where we get no kind of support because we're not film and multimedia, which is where they say we fall into, but the film and multimedia offices won't support game studios. We're not tech. because film and multimedia says they're tech, go to the tech people.
Yeah.
Tech says, nope, you're film and multimedia, go there. So we get completely ignored at the state level. However, we've got about 1,500 registered members in IGDA Ann Arbor alone. It's a ton of people making games.
Mm-hmm.
We recently had Xbox come and do their game camp here in Detroit. They had like 300 participants in that program,
Wow.
like 10 or 12 teams formed out of that. A few of them are still making games. We're hobbyists. Michigan is a state of hobbyist game developers because there is no ecosystem to support them beyond that. There's Stardock. Stardock is a wonderful studio that's been around forever. They're a little insular, though. They focus on themselves, which I respect it. You're I, AA, wherever they fall. Well, they're like III, AA, depending on how the industry classifies them. But they're not big enough to impact the whole ecosystem without risking themselves, and I don't blame them for not doing that. We're small. I hire a lot of juniors. Basically, everybody who works here at some point, I either had a class with me or was in a university that I had been at. We're looking at hiring some people from CCS, and I've never taught there, so that'll be cool. But I hire juniors. I train juniors, and I try to encourage them to leave. They just haven't yet. I'm like, go make more money, have, bigger projects, whatnot, more stability, but I'm grateful that they're still here. Then there's Parhelion in downtown Ann Arbor. They recently launched a Kickstarter and had a wildly successful Kickstarter, just closed a little bit ago, for a trading card game that's coming to market later this year. Super, super excited about that. But other than that, Michigan's slow when it comes to, there's a lot of people creating games, but there's not education for indie games. And indie game studios are challenging because there's two modes of operating, right? Do the market research, understand what people want, build a game for that, ship a game for that, hope it makes some good money. But it still has to be a good game.
Right.
Then there's the mentality of hobbyists, typically, of, I have a cool idea. It'll be a fun game. I'm going to make it and I'm going to ship it. People will hopefully like it. And that's how you end up occasionally with the breakout hits, but more often than not, why people say indie games fail. Because there's no research behind them. Michigan lacks that, as with most other states that have a budding indie game scene. They lack I had somebody tell me it was corporatization, but it's really just planning to survive beyond a year. I mean,
because you would think that with the amount of money that the game industry generates, that's usually where it starts for most people, is that, especially the people who are making the decisions like that. It's mostly, okay, financially, how is this benefiting, not benefiting, cost benefit analysis, all that stuff. What do you think is like sort of what would be the catalyst to get more people or get more support? You know what I mean? Because at some point it is going to have to start at the, I guess, not necessarily the local government level, but I mean, you will need like some infrastructure to be able to, kind of point people in the right direction to be able to kind of get things off the ground. What do you think is that point to where people can start to see more games and more gaming stuff in Michigan?
So I like to talk a little bit about Whitethorn, which is a phenomenal publishing company. And Whitethorn is led by incredible people. Like Dr. Matt is awesome. He is Dr. Matthew. I'm blanking on his last name right now, but he is awesome when it comes to like his impact in Pennsylvania specifically, which is where they're located. They're really impactful into that. They're really impactful into that like Rust Belt area of the games industry, but they're a publisher. They are focused on the business of making money off games. And that is different than most studios. It doesn't sound like it should be, but I always tell people that. You can learn a lot about a studio by understanding their kind of ethos. Are they here for a long time, or are they here to make a game? And quite a lot of studios I've met are here to make a game, and that's not a bad thing. We get some great games out of that. And then the studio kind of fades into nothing. People might start up their own new thing. I talked to a guy recently who's like, yeah, I'd really love it if my game does really well. I'd love it if it did well enough for me to not have to make another. And I sat with that for a bit because I was like, I hear you. I understand logically what you mean. But like, I love this. The joke that Connor and Amelia both make to everybody else in the office quite often is that the worst thing in the world for our studio is if we made a massive hit, because the number of games I would try to make would be insane. I'd be out there coming up and funding people left and right. Oh, let's make this, let's make that. Oh, can I get in on this call occasionally? Yeah. I love the process of creating games. I absolutely adore it. And I had a friend of mine say that you don't become a professor unless you're a little off mentally. You gotta be a little off. And for me, it's making games. I love the aspect of it. And I fell in love with the business behind it and understanding it from an academic level. I'll tell people often, the state of the industry right now as a human is horrifying. As a professor, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because as a professor, I can look at this and say, this makes no sense. We're making so much money. Why are we contracting? And you can break all that down from a academic understanding and go, okay, cool. No, I see the reason for it. It's because we currently live in an extraction economy. Pull as much resource money out and put it someplace else, which doesn't make a good sustainable games industry or an entertainment industry. Hollywood had to have this issue earlier on. We're going through it now. We'll stabilize later, but it doesn't make it better.
Yeah.
But I mean, to see Michigan grow in that way, we would have to see a publisher who is interested in pushing the surrounding ecosystem while not losing themselves in that process. Because it's very easy to say, like, oh, I'm only going to publish games from the Midwest. It's very hard to commit to that. So it's better to say, I'm going to put efforts towards growing the Midwest while publishing good games. And hopefully those will eventually be from the Midwest, from where I'm at, from my region, or the Great Lakes region, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
That, I think, is the only way that you survive the growing pains that would come from trying to grow this region. I think they could do it easily. I mean, Ann Arbor, Michigan exports so many game devs. We have game devs at Riot, at Blizzard, at you name a studio, we have got like 10 or 20 alumni who work there. And so the question isn't talent, because we clearly have that in the region. It's resources and education. And it's the mindset shift, right? Everybody wants to make their dream game, but not everybody's dream game is going to make money.
Right.
And so building a studio that understands, like, I need to be here tomorrow, not just here for the game launch. It's hard to do.
I have connected with a lot of people in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin as a game industry is very much on the rise. It is very much, it's going through the roof there. And I mean, being the place of Dungeons and Dragons and all of that stuff, like, obviously helps. But I'm like, okay, like, how does Michigan get to that? Because, I mean, people don't necessarily just think Wisconsin and think games industry right off the bat. But if you took 5 minutes to look at it, you'd be like, oh, they have like just about every game company you can think of that is a part of a major game in some way there, in some form or fashion. So I wonder, like, what, the catalyst would be in order to, make that shift, even though, like you said, the game industry. And I think it's also had to do with COVID. A lot of people dove in feet first with COVID. I think all these companies sort of just dove in and just threw money at whether it be the battle royale genre or just kind of any idea that people thought would be some sort of hit, just basically got funded at some point during COVID, you know what I mean? And so I think that pullback is still being felt. But like you said, good games don't stop coming. You always have the handful of companies that are at the top, your Rockstars, your Activisions, and all those people. Like, you'll always have those sitting there. I think it probably will just take like an indie company, like having a smash and people just, that attention's kind of coming towards it.
It's going to be, Wisconsin's done a great job of convincing the local government there that games are worth investing in. And that's because they have a couple of really big companies that do a lot of co-dev work, right? Like Ravensoft and Filament Games does a ton out of there as well. There's more, like Lost Boys Interactive.
Lost Boys,
and all them. God, the teams out of Madison are phenomenal. The teams out of Wisconsin as a whole are phenomenal. I have nothing bad to say about the region. I go to MDev whenever I can.
Yeah.
But MDev also is a sign of what we're talking about. It's education for the region, showing them, hey, you have to build a business, not just a game.
Right.
And you have to think about it from this way. So it's going to take an indie game. It's going to take a bigger company to succeed here in Michigan. But that company also has to think about Michigan, not as just the place that they are at.
Yeah.
But a place where they need to grow the talent for. And I mean, that requires support. It requires a bunch of other stuff as well. But it also requires that, like, next generation thinking. Who's coming next? Who can we train up? Because you can always import talent, right?
Yeah.
There's talent worldwide. There's wonderful people worldwide who are the best at what they do. And you can import them, but they will not stick. You can bring them in for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But unless you retire them there, the likelihood they stay is low. And even then, nobody retires to Michigan. They retire to Florida or somewhere else that's hot. So grabbing the talent who's already got their roots there, because that's where they came from, and saying, hey, let me give you a chance to grow and to rise here. And that's going to keep them kind of thinking about coming back, staying in the region, doing stuff there. And, it's just about showing people that you can actually have sustainability here. The main reason investors don't invest in indie games and smaller studios is because we love to talk about the games we're making. We love to talk about the games we're making, but we don't love to talk about what happens after.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they go, well, it really depends on if the game's a hit. Well, your business shouldn't.
Yeah.
Your business can't. We are a hit-driven industry, but you have to learn how to survive that. Otherwise, nobody's ever going to give you money. And you have to remember, too, like, what does it mean to get money? I talk to people all the time who are like, I need an investor. I'm like, okay, well, an investor needs an exit.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are they getting their money back?
Right,
They'll get some
exactly.
money when
Yeah.
we make money. No, they don't. It's very rare that you'll find the investor who's like, yeah, man, I'll just take a percentage of revenue and we're good. We're golden. I'm happy to see you succeed. They're like, cool, I'll take a percentage of revenue. I want to see a 3x minimum on the money I put in. And we have to have some kind of exit moment so that I can get my money out if I want to. And the moment you say that to a game dev who's got a cool idea and it's got a team, they go, I don't know what those are.
Yeah.
And the investor goes, thank you so much. I wish you the best and I hope you make it work. And then they walk away and they don't lose any sleep. And that's hard too, because like in Michigan, in a lot of the Midwest, people who start a studio, they don't want to sell their studio. They don't want an exit event.
Yeah.
They want to grow it into something that persists.
Yeah.
Like even for us, that's a conversation we have all the time. Like, do we want to take studio funding? No, probably not. We'll take project-based funding for sure, because that's easier. The exit for that's easier. You could take the IP, you could sell the IP, they get a revenue stake, whatever it is that they want to do in that negotiation. But when it comes to control of the studio long term, we're trying to build something that's here 10 years from now, a place that we can still be at.
Yeah.
And it's slow.
Yeah.
It's slow going.
Yeah. I mean, it usually always is, ain't it? What type of games or what type of things have you guys been working on? I mean, obviously, talk about what you can talk about, but, what sort of, I guess, ideas are kicking around? Like, what's the vibe, as far as like, if no one's ever heard of your company, if somebody's just now, kind of coming to you and say, hey, what's your company about? Like, what sort of things do you tell them?
Yeah. So I tell them not to look at our Steam page yet, because the worst thing I ever did was publish a Steam page for Ravenwood because a publisher asked us to. And that was the worst thing I've done. I haven't taken it down. I should probably. But Ravenwood Acres is kind of our long-term dream game. And we recently ripped off a bunch of the images from the Steam page because we're about to put out a whole new one. We just did a whole art rework, whole animation rework. We're super excited about it. But we aren't getting a ton of traffic anyway, so we were like, let's pull that down. Pull what we can down and replace it with the new stuff. But essentially, we took the concept of what if you were a farmer but you didn't have to be. You're in this cozy game, you've got these options, we have all these lifestyles you can explore. You can be a blacksmith, a tailor, an alchemist. We were heavily inspired by the game Fantasy Life.
Okay.
And before, when we started the concept, Fantasy Life 2 had not been announced. So we were like, oh my God, it's been so long, let's play with this. But Fantasy Life always lacks the farming elements, the cozy elements, that replayability element that's kind of in there that we loved. And then we started playing around with the idea of, okay, well, there's usually a main storyline with a farming game, but it's usually nothing to, like, you're not going to write home about it, right? People love Stardew Valley for the people in it, not for the story behind it.
Okay, yeah.
Well, behind its creation, they love that, but like not the MSQ, the fighting off JoJo Mart is never the thing people remember. So instead we said, what if we tied all of our storylines to the professions that you can be, those lifestyles you can live? So the blacksmith has his own unique storyline, and it doesn't change the world, but it changes his world. The chef, she's got her storyline of keeping her family together and bringing people together. The tailor is exploring what it means to make people feel as amazing on the outside as they do on the inside as he kind of goes through this process. The fisherman just wants to fish, and he just wants to talk about it with somebody else. There's nothing world-changing about it. And then we added some combat elements in. We have a knight, a ranger, a mage, and a monster tamer. And those ones do. But they're not fighting to change the world. They're fighting to protect their small portion of land in the middle of a very unforgiving wilderness in the world that they live in. And we centered our whole story around this spark of curiosity. What if humanity lost their curiosity because of a tragedy? They turtled up and they said, nope, I'm safe here, I'm comfortable here, and they let that comfort and safety keep them from being the curious things that humans are.
Gotcha.
And you go to the frontier to explore that curiosity, and you kind of help to reignite that fire, but it doesn't do it for everybody. But it gets more people coming to your town, revitalizes the town around you. It's a really fun story to play with. And we're working on a Roblox game right now, too, called Overgrown. It's not out yet, but it'll have its a beta in late August. And that concept we played again with the idea of a post-apocalyptic like game, but it's a solar punk post-apocalyptic game where the world ended in a lush green instead of an explosion. Plants mutate, they give you everything that you need, people turn into zombie plants if they die, things like that. We wanted to end it with a optimistic apocalypse, which was a fun note in the office when we talked about it. We're like, yeah, people are optimistic about the future, even though they've gone through this hardship and this problem, right? So many apocalypse games are rightfully sad.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, the market that we're targeting that 18 plus demographic, 18 to 25-year-old demographic, which is not huge on Roblox, but it's growing. And we're like, we're targeting that demographic, but we are getting kids who are moving into that demographic, and we don't need to hit them with more sad stuff, more depressing things. We also stepped away from the idea that the other survivors are the most dangerous part of an apocalypse, because every zombie movie out there, not every, it's generalization, but most things, an apocalypse movie, it's never what caused the apocalypse that's the most dangerous thing. It's the other survivors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we said, no.
That's true.
Everybody's working together. Everybody's trying to make it work. Everybody's trying to make it better. That's the solar punk kind of ethos, is we're all working together with our environment around us to try to do better. And so that's been really fun to explore. And those are our independent stuff. But when it comes to like contract work, oh my God, we run the gambit. People show up with the craziest ideas and go, so what do you think about this? And I go, man, let's get to work. Let's see what we can do for you. And sometimes we have to turn down projects where we're like, hey, I don't see it. Not because I think your idea is bad, but because I've done the research, I've done the effort, I've done the work, I've done all the little steps needed. And I don't see how you get the results that you want. And I don't want to be the guy who takes your cash, knowing what I think I know. And I think you could find somebody else who might see the vision better than I do and help you get to where you want to be. And in those cases, I usually recommend them out to other people who might. And I tell them, it's like, no guarantees these guys will take it either. But if they see what I don't, I love to see the success. Mm. And it's happened a few times where a game I just didn't see the vision on turned out pretty cool.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. That transparency, that honesty for me, I don't want to take somebody's cash.
Yeah.
Entertainment's hard as it is. And occasionally I'll have somebody who shows up who goes, I have a cool idea. I don't care if it makes money. I want to see it exist. You guys down to do the work? And I'm like, sure. If it's just for you, if you're the target audience, we'll build it. And let's hope other people like it. But I'm usually very, very transparent on that front. Like, you got to understand.
Yeah.
You're building for you.
What is your big picture vision for your company? Obviously, anybody would want to have a game and, go crazy and, you make a bunch of money. Like, do you want to kind of continue to, I guess, make your own sort of games and eventually kind of phase out the contract work and eventually turn it into a full-fledged studio, design studio? Or are you kind of like good where you are? You just kind of want more of it, more ideas, want to work with more people, that sort of thing? Like, what's sort of the, 10,000 foot view of like what you, hope to accomplish here in the nearest future?
Yeah. So our goal every day is to come in and build experiences that bring players together and tell incredible stories. That's the mantra we try to keep, is we want to tell incredible stories that bring people together, whether that's through multiplayer games or just through stories that are worth sharing with others, right? So for us, long term, I do think we'll always probably keep doing contract work. I really enjoy the process of helping bring other people's visions to life and getting to kind of shape that. But I think we also want to do, we sat down and we wrote up a whole studio vision document that's like 30 pages a little while ago, because I was like, I need to have an understanding of where we're going, right? Yeah. We want to have these flagship projects, these multi-year projects like Ravenwood, but I also really like the idea of smaller projects, the 1 to 2 year development cycles, kind of like what Overgrown for Roblox has turned out to be. It's only like a 6-month dev cycle for us.
I got you.
And those are really exciting because it gets to train some new staff and hopefully generate a little bit of revenue. I would love to have a massive hit game, but I would be just as happy to have a serial list of modest successes that keep us open. And then from there, it's really exploring like new concepts and building out our ecosystem around us. I'm a professor because I love it, not because I have to. I tell people it's my hobby. I teach for fun. And so I love to keep helping support the local Michigan scene and growing that. We joke about building a little ethical publisher inspired by like Whitethorn and a few others out there. The name we jokingly call it is like Tiny Giants.
Okay.
Michigan, small groups. There's marketing is a huge gap for our region. There isn't any good marketing companies. Skilltree Marketing is one that I really like, but more people are finding that they're really great. And so I don't see them being as open for indie work in the next couple of years as they continue to grow. So I'd love to build a little internal marketing team that supports us, but can help out anybody in the Michigan region at a steep discount.
Yeah.
And then I'm currently working on a little mentorship platform to connect mentors with mentees to make that process a little easier. I bring in a lot of mentors for my staff, and like I've made a lot of friends over the years. And so I'll call them and be like, hey man, can I pay you a couple bucks, 100, 200, whatever it might be per month to do 1 or 2 meetings with my guys and help train them, because I don't have that experience, or that's not my specialty.
Yeah.
And that has paid dividends tenfold for us. And I was at GDC talking to people, and they're like, I don't know how to even find mentors. And I was like, you make friends who are better than you? You be the least intelligent or skilled person in whatever room you're standing in.
Yeah.
And you just keep going to a new room every time. And they go, okay. But that's, again, that whole thing that Pam told me way back in the day. My journey and path into this, my personality type, the way in which I carry myself and do things will not be the same for everybody else. So I'm trying to build something to help kind of equalize that for others wherever I can. And those are the kind of things for me. If we're still here 20 years from now, making games consistently, our own games plus client work, and we're helping to push the Michigan region further, the Great Lakes region, the Midwest region, if we're doing really great, then I'm happy. Like I'm stoked, because the best thing you can do is to help those who are coming after you. And I have a boss currently, he'd laugh if I knew I was calling him out like this, who, when I got started working for him over at Lawrence Tech, he said that he thought it was the responsibility of everybody who's reached the forefront of their discipline to look back and help those who are just starting. Mm-hmm. And that has sat with me every day. I think about that so often when it's like, I don't want to teach today. I don't want to go do this semester. I've got all these other projects. Because I'll keep a full load of like 2 or 3 projects in the studio, and then 2 or 3 classes that I'll teach outside of that in my evening times. And he's like, well, how do you do that? I was like, that's our responsibility, right? Like, that's how else could they ever do it if nobody stops to show them how? And so that's kind of what I would love to see happen for our studio and whatnot.
For people to be able to find you and stuff like that, plug everything where people can find all of the things that you're doing, as well as, the games and everything else.
For sure. So the easiest place to find me is linkedin.com/Corbin Reeves. Really easy there. I always connect with people. I always take meetings. If people ever want to just chat, I'm always down to do that too. I've got a Calendly link that I'll share with you if you ever message me and you're like, hey, can we chat? Schedule that. For our games and whatnot, we use AzureRavens.com. You can find us there. The website's going to go through an overhaul because I've finally been bullied enough by the team to be like, we need a real website. Being a referral shop, it's always hard to be like, let's build outbound material, because everybody refers to us. And so by the time they get to us, they're like, we already heard all about you. And I'm like, cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
But we're finally getting people who are like, hey, what's your site? Can we see some of your stuff? And I was like, oh, shoot. So we're going to make it look better. But for now, you can find us there. And, that's the biggest thing. We have a Discord as well that you can find on our website and on my LinkedIn. You can always chat with us. The biggest thing I tell everybody is I got into the industry because people were willing to take meetings and chat with me and give me advice unsolicited and for no reason. So I try to do the same.
Yeah.
And so always feel free to reach out and chat anytime.
Cool.